wiki page describes the method of setting up DSPACE to use an institutional Ldap server for user provisioning. After that is done, it is then up to the repository manager to define privileges for individuals on the repository. Okay, please note, for the Ldap to work correctly, consistently, it is suggested that all the user credentials must be in one Ldap server or replicated using one directory tree. If you have a separate server for staff and students, then authentication becomes risky and difficult to do. There is a hierarchical Ldap setup, which I haven't used, which might work for Ldap institutions or institutions that have complex Ldap setups. But this tutorial will concentrate on one Ldap server or using one directory tree structure. Okay, for the requirements, very good idea to have a server firewall. We don't want unauthorized access, and also to make secure connections, so all the connections are encrypted so that the usernames and passwords aren't sent out on the clear over the internet. The other requirement is to talk to your IT Ldap system administrator, our central IT Ldap system administrator, and from there find out which host names the Ldap servers use, which canonical context the Ldap servers use, which objects context the Ldap servers use, and which search context the Ldap servers use. You'll see more of this later on when we do the configuration, but the point is to talk to your campus Ldap system administrator. Right, if you don't have Ldap on campus, here are some links to help you get an Ldap going on your campus. I assume most campuses use Microsoft Active Directory, and here are some links on how to integrate with Microsoft Active Directory. Right, there are other authentication methods available, and I have links to that. For example, you can authenticate by IP address only, you can authenticate via shibboleth, and you can authenticate via X509 certificate. And there's all the references to the official DSPACE documentation about this. Okay, so we've got the introduction out of the way, we've got the notes out of the way, the requirements out of the way, so we're ready to go with step 1. Okay, so the step 1 is to log into the server. If you remember correctly, we've got several login procedures, and I'm going to use the login with the Ubuntu desktop. So what I've done is I've opened a terminal, and now I'm going to log into the test DSPACE that I installed on my server. So I'm going to SSH in there as the DSPACE user to the local machine 192.168.2.7, and then the password 09 Ubuntu 09. Okay, so we logged in. I'm just going to type clear to keep it clear. So we logged into my machine, and everything looks good. So to get the Ldap going on, we want to test it first on the server. So we must install the Ldap client utilities. So we do that, copy and paste it in there, and we press enter, and then the password 09 Ubuntu 09. Okay, so now it's going to install all the client packages. Now during the installation, it's going to ask you about object, might ask you about object context, etc. It will definitely ask you about the Ldap servers. So you want to have these details ready when you do this installation, before you do this installation. So please have all the details about the host names, the context, etc. ready before you do this installation. So now to do it, we press enter, and off we go. There we go. Now we want to find out what are the Ldap server configurations. So I'm just going to open this up here quickly in a new tab, just to see what our Ldap configuration is. Ldap server, Ldap there, the host names. Okay, so we use on campus the STB Ldap 01 and STB Ldap 02. So the provider URLs are just exactly the same as that there. So what we're going to do is we type it in here, and we change this to Ldap there, and we take that column out, and then we type in STB Ldap 01 sun.ac.za, and yes, port, it was input number 389, and then we put in another one, stbl02 sun.ac.za, and on port 389 as well, and then we click OK. Then the this is the canonical, I believe this is the canonical context. So this is our canonical context here, this one here on our campus. So I'm going to copy that one in there and see if this will paste in there. Let's have a look. Does it paste? No. There we go, paste in there. So that's the search base, or the DN of the search base. There it's so you see our object context. If you look there, object context and our search context are the same thing on our campus. So this should work for both the search base and the object context and the search context. So let's click on that. So we keep to Ldap version 3. We're not going to make a local root database admin, no. Choose this option if you want to log into the database to retrieve entries. Does the Ldap requirements? No. So we don't want to log into the database. And there we go. It's installing the software packages. So you see there, I had the details ready to go before configuring. And then we just wait for that to in there. So now we want to go, and we have to do a little bit of trickery. There has been some issues with Ldap, with the Ldap setup on DSPACE, on the Debian based systems. So this is a little hack that enables you to have one global location for the Ldap config file. Now if we have a look in there, we're going to the Ldap, you see there's the Ldap config file. Now we don't want the Ldap config file to be in the etc Ldap folder, we want it to be etc ldap.config. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that config file, to just make a copy of it and call it original, and we paste that in there. So now we have, if we look there, we have two files. Now then we remove that one, so we have a copy of the original file, then we delete the original, paste that in there. So if you have a look there, we should just have the original file there. Alright, then we still want an Ldap conf, but we want to point to the etc Ldap conf, so we do this link here to point to this. So we have only have one Ldap conf. This was an issue, I don't know why it hasn't been solved yet with Debian yet, I don't know why. So there, the Ldap conf, the etc Ldap / Ldap conf points to the etc Ldap conf, and this created a lot of confusion with Debian and setting up the Debian there. Okay, so now we're ready to now configure the Ldap file. So let's just go back there. Good system best practice. And then we're going to now configure the Ldap conf file. And we copy and paste in there. Alright, so let's see what it has set up for us from the installation. There we have the base. Remember that installation, we've got the base in there. We're using Ldap version 3. We don't have to bind to the server to look up there. We're going on port there, timeouts there, bind policy there. All of that will stay the same. Camp password is all the same. All of that still the same. We don't do anything there. All of that still the same. So we want to see where do we set up the connections. We put in those Ldap credentials. So we want to make sure that those server IDs, the server host names, are used for the connection. So as it mentions here, your LDAP server must be resolvable without using LDAP. Okay. And we can either use the host connection parameter, or we can use the URI LDAP parameters there, like this one. And there it is. From what we inputted, there. I can just get it there. There it is. From what we inputted, there it is. There. It's put it in there. Okay. So if we have a look at the configuration example here, on our campus, I use the host parameter instead of the URI LDAP parameter like there. That's up to you to use. We're going to experiment. I think we'll leave it here as the URI parameter and see how well it performs. If that doesn't perform, then use the host parameter to connect to the LDAP servers. So everything else is the same, not much to change. Right, so now we test it. We want to test to check that we can do a search on the LDAP tree using just Unix. So let's try and do a search on my canonical name in the LDAP tree, and we copy and paste that in there and press enter. And if the LDAP servers are available on the internet, we should get a reply, but no, we don't. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to simulate being on campus. I'm going to start up a VPN connection to our campus. It shouldn't take too long. We use Fortinet, I think, to create VPN connections. So there we go, it's continuing, and we'll wait for the connected. Okay, there we are connected. So now the tunnel is running, so now I'm virtually on campus. So I should be able to ping, just to check, I should be able to ping those std ldap 01.sun.ac.za server. If I can ping it, I should be able then to query it. To check the setup. Let's ping another machine on the campus. Let's see if we got a proper connection going here. It doesn't seem so. Maybe the ping is disabled. So let's try again to do that lookup and see what happens. Not yet. Doesn't seem to work yet. So you want to try and get this working before you do any further setup of this. Is to try and get this working on campus. Let's see what address I have now. We've got an ether 1, ether 027, 56101. Okay, it seems to be this machine won't be able to, this virtual machine won't be able to look up on campus. Okay, later on when I am on campus, well, let's log into a server that's already working, just to give you an example of how this would look on campus. So I'm going to leave that there. This is my local server on my local machine. Now I'm going to log into a server on campus by opening a new terminal there, and I'm going to log into a server on campus. I'll log into our development server so that we can have a look. Repository.sun, because that is definitely going to be able to connect to the LDAP server. And then the password for that is, okay, my campus password. Let's get that in there. And we connected? Yes, I think we're going to get there. This is a virtual machine on campus on our virtual host. It takes a bit of time to log in. Okay, so now let's try and do that lookup and see if we get a result. Okay, PHEN2, and there we go, we get a result. So this is a machine on campus, and I've done the lookup there. I typed in that search, Ldap search there to do the lookup, and it came back with the details from the Ldap tree. So if you get this kind of detail back, then you know you're ready to go to set up the Ldap on your DSPACE instance. Okay, so I'm going to just want to resize a little bit of this if I can. I just want to get into the resizing there. There we go. Okay. All right. So that worked. Did it display any passwords? I wonder if I can copy and paste this out there. Okay, there's no passwords. Alright, I'm not going to make this public information on the wiki, but there you can see what the Ldap lookup did. Alright, so once you've got that doing, then once you've got that working, then you can continue to the next step, step 2. Sorry, I'm just there we go, step 2. Now the next step is to configure DSPACE now to use this Ldap connection. Alright, I just want to point out that there were some bugs with the NetID domain when doing this upgrade. Seems to be solved, but very important in the DSPACE config is to complete this NetID domain parameter. Okay, so how do we do that? First of all, let's go back to our server. I'm just going to put this away. Let's go back to our local server and start setting it up. Now we've got to set up authentication to use Ldap. So we do that first, copy and paste, and get authentication to use Ldap. If we go page down, you can see there's only password authentication enabled. So what we've got to do is we've got to add this Ldap there. So we add the Ldap. We copy that, we add the Ldap in there, and we right click and we paste it in there, and we just put in some nice spaces to make it neat, to line it up nicely. So there now we've Ldap. First we try Ldap and then we try password. Okay, so that's enabled. Then we write it out and press enter. No. So now we write it out. Is CFG, that's right. CFG, and then Control X, just to make sure that's correct. Let's look at it again. Yep, Ldap authentication, Control X, right. Now we must configure the Ldap side. We've enabled the Ldap, now we must configure the Ldap config. So let's go and do that. Ldap authentication. And we want to use it almost, it's going to be almost the same as the server configuration, the one we tested with it. So first of all we want to enable it, put it on true. We want to do auto register. I like to switch it off. I like for our users to come in and verify that they've done that they have an account on the server. That's a nice way of keeping it false there. So they come back and then they verify they've got an account. Okay, so I leave auto register as false there. Alright, then we want to do the provider URLs. I'm just going to copy and paste my stuff in there. So you must put in your parameters there, your server parameter provider URLs that you've tested with. And you paste them in there. So ID field here, we just go back down now. Our ID field, we use CN as our ID field, so I'll just copy and paste that in there. We use CN as our ID field. You'll have to find out from a campus Ldap administrator. So our object context, as you remember from earlier on from the configuration, is this one's really simple. So there's our object context. And then the next one is our search context. It's the same thing, same tree. So I copy and paste that in there. Any of you are Ldap experts, you're welcome to let me know if this can be done better. So email field is the same as the default, so I'm just going to take that out. There's mail. Our surname is the same as the default, that's fine. And then our given name is the same as the default as given name. And our phone field is the same as the telephone number. Okay, here is an option to put the Ldap users into a group, and there's a hierarchical Ldap settings. But I'm going to just leave that as it is. That's fine, as everything is looking good there. I just want to get to this point here, the net ID. It's very, we must get to the net ID. We must fill that in there. This is net ID domain. Okay, so we remove that, and we must say that everybody gets it at Sun. Alright, you put in your domain there at your campus, at up.ac.za, at wits.ac.za, whatever it is. But you must set up a net ID email domain. Don't leave it blank, don't leave it commented out. You must set something up. Okay, so we save that. There's not much else to do, it's done. So we save that. Control O and Control X. So there we set up, first we enabled Ldap authentication in the first step. The second step, we configured that Ldap authentication. So what's next? Let's have a look. Now if we are using the XML user interface, we want to update the messages. Instead of saying net ID login or anything, we want to say campus login or email login. And let me explain that. Let me show you that on our test server, what that looks like here. So ideally, when you click on the login button here, there, it comes up with those terms: campus login and email login, because those make more sense to the users. Campus login means use your campus account. Email login means use the email that you want to use to log in with. Okay, that's cleared up. So to modify that, we copy and paste. Yeah, we just modify the XML user interface messages file, and we copy and paste that in there, and we look for something. Let's look for .title. So Control W, and we look for .title in the file there. Hopefully we find something. Page not found. .title. Let's try again. No, not right there. Okay, so .title is not a good way to search for this, so let's search for it by, let's try and search by Ldap, capital Ldap, and see what we find there. Okay, well there we have it. We want to look for .title, the org DSPACE, not the XML one. We want to look for the other one, so let's look for the org DSPACE one. We want to go past all of this. LW. There we go. Org Ldap authentication, and there it says Ldap authentication. Ldap is not going to mean much to any users on campus, so we change that to campus login. Campus login. There we go. Alright, the next one, we want to look for password authentication title there, and this one says password authentication. Again, that does not mean much to the users on campus, so let's go to make it email login. Authentication is just a bit too long of a word for that. We want to keep it simple for the user. So there we go. We have email campus login, and then we have email login. And we finished with that, we save the file out there. Okay, so now the login words make sense to the users. Alright, so what's next? Alright, now we have to tell the application to use the secure login links when you click on the login link. So we have to modify the DSPACE config file to do that, and we copy and paste that and carry on like that. And we look for this parameter, there, force SSL. So let's look for that. Force, type Control W to do a search, and you type in the search term, and then we enable it. There we go. Please make sure that the DSPACE hostname parameter is set correctly, okay, as noted there. So there we have, force SSL equals true, and we write that out, and that's it. Then the next step is to rebuild DSPACE. Okay, I'm not going to do that with this machine, it takes way too long, but I'll just demonstrate on our production Sun Scholar what a working system looks like, quickly, just to show you. Okay, I've got the responsive theme running, which has gone into responsive mode, so I should have to, I don't know why it hasn't come out here. Okay, let's just go full screen quickly, just to show you. So there we click on the login link there, and there's those two messages, campus login and email login. It makes much more sense than Ldap authentication and password authentication. So you click on the campus login, and then you notice there the secure link is active there. You see, it turns into a secure link. This is what you need. You must make sure that when you click on the login link, this turns into a secure link. Okay, and that must be true as well with the email login. It must also turn into a secure link there. Okay, so once you have that going, and you can you log in with you get a couple of researchers to log in with their campus credentials, and they log in and they register their profile and everything, you've got a working system. Well done to you. And this is an essential part of DSPACE, is to make sure that you protect the usernames and passwords of your researchers if they're using a campus login system. And that concludes my tutorial. Thank you very much.